right, hi everyone. I'd like to start talking about the who of Dasein. This is the second moment in the existential analytic of Dasein. The worldhood of Dasein, or in the world, was the first. We talked about that. The last one will be being in as such. So we'll get to that one in a minute. So we're in the middle of this one, or of these three moments. The second moment is the who of Dasein, and so like who am I? What kind of thing is this thing that has the being of Dasein? And he goes through and sort of dismisses like other understandings of, well, we don't even say self, because that's not right. To think self is to already to think of the thing that I am as removed and separate from a world, right? To think of myself as a thinking thing, like Descartes did. Res cogitans, right? The thinking thing is to, what does he do? He closes his eyes and meditates, and after he comes in from the snow and gets a fire going and can, cast off the concerns of the world, he closes his eyes and reflects and finds himself there, right? So it's for him. There's a consciousness whose true being is not worldly, right? I am certain of myself as a thinking thing before I have a body, a world, a stuff to do, all these other things, right? So Descartes' understanding of the thing that I am is, again, removed from an engagement with the world. If we think of ourselves as a soul, that's already a thing who's like already otherworldliness, and whose real being is best understood when we think about it in terms of it's not being here in the concrete world. Let's see, what else is there? The contemporary understanding, I am a nervous system. How this is already to think of the stuff that's happening in here, maybe in here in particular, but throughout my body, as like a kind of being that is sort of complete unto itself, and then starts getting affected by a world. Right? So even to understand myself in terms of a nervous system, or to understand myself in terms of mental activity, to understand myself in terms of brain activity, is to understand myself as removed from the world, and I can look at my brain as a thing that's working, and I can understand myself in terms of that brain, and then I could say, I wonder what's happening when I put that brain into a world. But that's all abstract. I mean, and then I try to convince myself that what I've understood is the truth of me, and then I drop myself into a world, right? Another similar, I guess, to this nervous system understanding of self is, I've heard people say, I'm a slab of meat. This is problematic. I mean, on a couple of different levels. First of all, if we are such a thing as a slab of meat, I got to say we are on a unique slab of meat, because we are the only slab of meat that says, I'm a slab of meat, right? No other slabs of meat, chickens and dogs and donkeys and amoeba or whatever else might count, says that about themselves, right? So already with this, we see that there's something like an attentiveness to the thing that I am that is not found in other things that are, explained in terms of like bits in the world, a dog bit, cow bit, chicken bits, whatever. These entities that would exist like in themselves, and I just say, oh, I'm one of them. Because I could say, oh, I'm one of them, it means no, I'm not. Anyway, all of these understandings of self as the thing that I am as a self, like understandable in my uniqueness, as a thinking thing, as a soul, as a nervous system, a slab of meat, all of these understand Dasein as a being present at hand. So, I mean, we've lost our concrete engagement with the world. We understand the thing, humans, as entities that could exist, and I mean, existing separately, abstracted out of a world, and understood best in terms of abstracted out of a world. And Heidegger's like, we lose everything when we think that way. We don't get to, he says this, you probably read this a couple times, Dasein has the kind of being that is not the kind of beings that are present at hand. Dasein's being is not the kind of being of other beings that are in the world. There, we are, well, whatever we are engaged in a certain way, and we want to understand what that's about, and that's what we're getting at here, right? We've understood that first in terms of equipment, now we're understanding in terms of the day. The who of Dasein, I guess I just gave it away, is, he says, the they. Before we get to that, he says, Dasein, remember, that means something like here being, and it refers to the kind of thing that is always already mine. And he says that because what he's trying to get us to do is understand it from the point of view that we are in personally, like the one that I've got now, and like wherever you are is the one that you got. Not instead of abstracting out and understanding humans. You know, what am I doing right here? That's where we want to look. And he says, so Dasein is always Mitsein. Mitsein is just the German word for being with. So the thing that I am is always with others. And so that's, always already. I am never not with others. Even in isolation, right? Aristotle says something like this. Humans are not self-sufficient. So if you see a human that's not a member of a political community, what you see is either a beast or a god. And he's sort of being facetious there, meaning something like this. You're not going to see something like that, right? And if you did, it would be a beast or a god, but it's not going to be like that. You're not going to see a human being that has never been in a polis. You know, maybe there's something like that Tarzan thing, but that's even sort of already from or because of or something other people. So there is no such thing as a Dasein that isn't Mitsein. If you think you see a Dasein that isn't Mitsein, it's a beast or a god. So that's a little bastardization of Aristotle. So how does being with show itself? Others aren't first different from me. It's not that they're just the same as me, but it's something like this. The differences of Dasein, of other Dasein, are things that are of me. So there is a distantiation, is how he says it, right? There's the thing that I am, and others that are like me but different from me. So there's a distance between the thing that I am and the thing that you are, but we are same, different. How does that show up? He says, I always understand myself in terms of like being equal or falling behind or getting ahead of or so forth like that. So my understanding of self is always shot through with, mediated by, understood via other people. So who are these other people? Who are the they? He says, it's an indefinite thing. And so when he says the they, we say this all the time. They say that, you should wear a mask. They say don't wear a mask. They say do this. They say do that. Who are they? It's not like it's a group of people somewhere like, what you tell them? Yeah, let's agree on that. Okay. The they has just said, this is what we're going to say. It's not like that. It's not like a source. So it is an indefinite group. Other words that he says about it, it's anonymous. It's everyone and no one. And then he says something like this. It is no one but me. Right? So where do you find the they? Right here, right? Has two thumbs and is determined by the they? This guy. And it's not even something like I consciously put it on. It's really more like it comes from me. The they pours out of me without even me knowing it. I don't even know what I am except for by way of the they. They tell me how I'm supposed to behave. They give me the norms to live by. They give me a sort of typicality that I need to align myself with. That they, will let me know if I'm not being what they want me to be, because they will kick my, what I'm saying. And one of the things Heidegger says here, and here we can read Nietzsche, and others as well. But there is the they makes a leveling down, right? Every Dasein is the they, so no they is exceptional, right? So there's a leveling down. He even calls it in the Guignon Paraboom on page 233, the dictatorship of the they, the dictatorship of the they. And he says it is both a subjection and a closeness. One of the things, how does the they act as a dictator over me? Because I am they. I'm the one that says, they say I shouldn't act that way. I'm the one that says how am I supposed to be a man? Well, they say this, they say that. So there I go. So it is from me. I think I've mentioned Foucault's panopticon, that kind of prison where the prisoners sort of put on their own guard because they don't know if they're being watched or not. This is what he's talking about. Foucault takes it in other directions than Heidegger would go with it, but we can get the same sort of meaning here. I become a ruler of myself, my own dictator, according to the values of the they. What kind of car am I going to drive? How am I going to dress? How am I supposed to, do I swear? Do I fix cars? Do I have lots of women? Do I have one woman? Do I have no women? They all got an answer for how to be a man. Okay? So they'll let me know what I'm supposed to do, which is another way of saying, I know what they want of me. I will give myself the rules they have. So it's a narrowing down and a leveling down and a non-exceptionality. And Heidegger says this, it's a concealing, right? It's not an explicit, I wonder what they think. These are the list of the things that they think. I will put that list into my mind, and then I will say, now I will comport myself according to the they. It's hidden. He says it's concealed because I live it. I am the one, the they comes from me and everyone else, but it's from here. So it's concealed in its living. Let me say that again. It is concealed in its living. It just like equipment, it disappears in its working, right? So this is one of the things we want to, excuse me. So there's an interesting part here in Heidegger's whole philosophy that we start to get to in this part, and this is his understanding of truth. We brushed on it a little bit, but with the they, he says, is a concealment. It's the thing is that what he's saying is that it is from the they that I understand my world and myself and all of that, and it conceals an engagement with the world. I live from the they and don't even pay attention to what might be right in front of me, right? For example, remember reading Nietzsche, and where he talks about in Beyond Good and Evil, that Pole Copernicus and that Pole, who was actually a Czech, Boscovich, right? From them, we get they say the earth moves. And we all go, yeah, the earth moves, as we stand on a solid earth, right? They say that we're made of tiny bits, when I don't see anything more engage a world of tiny bits. So we end up like concealing the world that's right in front of us for an understanding that might miss it, right? So this concealment is a sort of blanketing or covering over. And what Heidegger's going to say is that what is needed is an unconcealment, which for him that's truth. And it comes from the ancient Greek word for truth, which is aletheia, like so the privative and then letheia, which means conceal. So means concealment. So the ancient Greek word for truth is unconcealment, and Heidegger's taking this back up. He wants to disclose the world. He wants to, the unconcealment. This is how he gets to these sorts of words. One of the things here that we're getting at now with this understanding of the they, we start to see something like the possibility of a different kind of comportment than what we had been talking about all along. And with this, it gets to be problematic, but we'll talk about how it goes from here. The unconcealment of the they, Heidegger says, allows or shows up the possibility of authenticity. Okay? So the possibility to find oneself. Because of the they, I see that there's no myself. All I got is what they say. And boy, once I understand that there's the possibility to find myself, we're going to see that this is a problematic assertion, because finding myself is something like, there's a self that was here already. It was just sort of like, right there, and I just need to like whittle away some things, and then there it is. That ain't Heidegger. But it seems like he's saying something like that. So even in his later work, he comes back and sort of gives himself a critique of this sort of language. Although he says he didn't really mean it here, but, it's here. This is sort of that humanism where I could maybe choose to be me, like from nowhere. I'll be this guy that's not determined by the they. There's myself. I'm authentic now. That's not going to be Heidegger, even if you hear some of that kind of language here. The kind of thing that Dasein is thrown into a world. So being thrown into the world means being thrown into a history that isn't our making. You and me didn't decide the words that we're using. You and me didn't decide the understandings of ourselves that we understand ourselves by. They were there, we were thrown into it, and we take them up as if they're like, duh. But that's the problem. So that means we are always inauthentic. So a further explanation of the they. Dasein is from the they. It always already. Remember, always already is like you got to understand that and say it all the time. One is always already from the they, which means that one is always already not the author of our meaning, which means that Dasein's original structure is inauthentic. The kind of thing we are is not the author of ourselves. The kind of thing we are is inauthentic. Now this language, we're going to see more like this. He's going to say something like, we are thrown projections, we are a fallenness, we are, inauthentic, fallen, thrown. These sound like moral judgments, and Heidegger constantly says they aren't. But, they aren't because they're the basic structure. Dasein's being is inauthentic. There is no such thing as authentic Dasein, right? That we wouldn't even recognize it, I imagine. I don't know. But for Heidegger, there's no such thing as an authentic Dasein because we are always from stuff that's not us and engaging in a world that's not ours. Not of our making, not of our origin, not of our original plan, right? So it's something else's, it's someone else's, and we just sort of fit in. So it's not a moral falling. It's not like if only you tried harder, you could have been authentic. Inauthenticity is Dasein's existential and ontological being. I just said that. Dasein is, first and foremost, inauthentic. Existentially and ontologically, we are inauthentic. So if there's going to be something like authenticity, it's going to be existential and ontic. All right? So it'll be an engagement with beings here and now that is somehow, I don't know, of myself or something like that. We'll see what Heidegger's got to say about that. Of course, it's not going to be like a freedom from nowhere, but it's not, no Dasein will ever become authentic like once and for all. If anything, and maybe never even this, if anything, authenticity will show up here in this engagement with these things, and then we'll sort of fade back into that concealment of the they, the inauthenticity. Okay, so that's not a moral judgment, and you need to keep that in mind. It's just it's the nature of our being. It's how we are. We understand ourselves this way, and we are thrown projections. So it's not like our fault. So authenticity stands out from inauthenticity as a moment in Dasein's life, but by and large, existentially and ontologically, Dasein is inauthentic. So a couple of other things. Let me see if we can explain this the they and being with a little bit more. I understand it. Is it Porno for Pyros? I think it is, or Jane's Addiction. Porno for Pyros. We'd make great pets. The they provides us meaning. The they provide roles for Dasein, and we just sort of take up these roles. We sort of enact them. We fit into a slot that's made for us. We appropriate what is appropriate for us. That is to say, we take up what we're supposed to take up. We appropriate what is appropriate. So how? It doesn't have to be all that bad, but it's just like, it's just the way we are. So sometimes Dasein understands itself as greedy and selfish and in competition. But sometimes Dasein understands himself as, or I should say itself, Dasein understands itself as selfless, charitable, helping, right? So, but these are all what they say we are. Sometimes we understand ourselves as worker, as citizen, as gendered. We always do, I imagine. And sometimes we understand ourselves as, one of the ways that Dasein understands itself is as autonomous and free and self-creating. But that is from the they. So it's not even my own self-understanding that is this understanding of my freedom. It's what they say I am. So how do I show that freedom? Well, they'll have an answer, right? And it is from this idea of myself as autonomous, self-creating, and free that Dasein becomes equipment for itself, right? I'm a thing that makes myself the thing that I am. For what? For what? Okay, so once I become equipment to myself, the equipmental nature of equipment determines me, and then we see that I'm a thing that would make itself until I'm dead. And what am I making? There really is no answer, just another process, another couple of steps, here's what I'll do, here's what I'll do, here's what I'll do. So even freedom, so if you were to say, I will choose differently, you can try maybe choose a different life, but that's just to choose another way that they say we live. How do you get out of the they? Do you go live in the woods? That's what they say. Right? How do you and even if they don't say something to try to just negate what is here, what they say is still to be determined by the they, just like by negation. They say we're supposed to do that. I'm going to say but I'm still determined by the they. So there's no getting out of it. There's no pure self. There's no pure engagement that would be from me. I am always up to here and even further, self-understanding from the they. All right, so we're about ready to talk about the third moment in the existential analytic of Dasein. We talked about in the world, being in the world. We talked about the who of Dasein. That's the they. So there's equipment, the equipmental nature of equipment, the they, and now we're talking about being in, or being in as such. There's a couple things that to sort of start this out here. This word facticity he brings up, and facticity is something like, it's not about facts, like going around and pointing out, there's a car and that's a plant and that's a thing and there's another thing and there's a coffee cup and so forth, like matters of fact. That's not what facticity means. For Heidegger, facticity is just the raw, inescapable presence of a world. Like no matter what, if Dasein is, well, I guess alive, right? Maybe even if it goes to heaven, there will be a world, right? If what they tell me about heaven is real, I guess I'll be doing something there, right? Maybe I'll be gazing at God for eternity. That's what some people say, right? Well, there'll be clouds or something. I'm sure if I'm gazing at God, maybe there's something behind me I could look at, but I'm not going to because I'm going to be gazing at God. In other words, there's stuff there that just is like, poof, right? I can't wish it away. I can't pretend it's not there. It's a brutal fact. So the facticity of the world is the brute being of it that I can't get away from. Here again, he also brings up this idea that we've been talking about all along of thrownness. And here it's another way of understanding it, is situated, right? We are always in situations, no matter what, right? It's a work situation, a driving home situation, a relationship situation, a sexual situation, a fighting situation, a happy situation, an eating situation. I come home, I get to kick back and relax situation, right? There's always a world that is like calling for a certain kind of comportment. And always, that is facticity. I cannot escape that. The only time there's not is when there's not a Dasein for engaging it, that is to say, when I'm dead. So that's one thing to understand. The next thing is about the as structure. And we've already talked about it. Dasein understands itself as charitable, as greedy, as gendered, as whatever. So this as structure is the way that being gets thematized, right? So that it's a kind of understanding of being. The things show up as for the sake of whatever. So as I'm going through my projects, everything shows up as either helpful or hindering or in the way or nothing important at all, right? The piece of paper that's over on my desk right there shows up as not important. It's not something I'm dealing with. This one shows up as important, right? Everything is as something. So the as structure of engagement is a way that we engage the world, and it's a thematization of it, but a pre-thematic thematization. What does he say? A non-explicit, a non-expressed understanding. So again, you know what your pen is for in your shoes and all of these things, right? So we're sort of bringing this idea back into play here. But being in, we want to understand in terms of, there's two words in particular that are used here, and one is usually just roundly scolded as being a bad translation. Not that I would want to diss anybody for translating Heidegger. It's evidently a nightmare. But so let me just share with you what everybody else who would know this better than I would, who reads German better than me. There's two words. One is Befindlichkeit. Befindlichkeit is translated as state of mind. But I mean, we've been talking all along that, for Heidegger, mind is not the thing here, right? To say state of mind means that like the way that I think is something like determining. And it's all up in my noggin. It's all like an idealism or something like that. So state of mind is not the right word. I like to say this. I know it's sort of like a false cognate or maybe a false translation, but Befindlichkeit, I understand as, befind, how I find myself. How I find myself. So I always find myself in a certain way, right? Another word to keep in mind here is Stimmung. The German word is Stimmung. It's translated either as mood or attunement, right? So how do I find myself? I'm always in a mood somehow, right? I'm always in mood is maybe too hard a word, so maybe attunement or how I find myself, keep these all kind of in play. But that mood, whatever it is, shows being up in a certain way. So mood is disclosive of being. Mood shows being up in a certain way. Some of the examples I might use here are, if you are in a mood, anticipatory, right? So you go into your buddy's house or your significant other's place, right? And you're driving there, and everything's in your way. Why are you not going 100 miles an hour? Why are you stop signs? Just yield. Keep going. Go. I gotta get there. Everything shows up as hindering you, right? And then you get there and you hang out with your lover or whatever like that, and then the way home you're like, maybe I'll stop at this stop sign a little bit longer, kind of look around. What's the rush? Why are you honking at me, guys? What's the problem, right? So the world shows up as in your way, and then the world shows up as like what, friendly and inviting or something like that. This is just an example. The examples Heidegger uses here are, well, there's three that are like worthy of consideration. One is boredom. And one of the things that he wants to say about this is that in boredom, it's not that the world is meaningless. It's really that everything in the world shows up as meaning nothing really at all, right? I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to do that. I don't want to do that. It's not like there's just like nothing and I'm like going. But like what shows up is not enticing. So what we'll see here is important because this also points towards the general structure of Dasein as being concernful or care. Okay, even when I don't give a damn, it's because I'm engaging a world that shows up as offering nothing to give a damn about. Okay, so even boredom is a kind of concernful engagement. Let's see. Oh, fear. Fear is the next one. Fear is where there's something in the world, and here is important, there's something in the world that shows up as like a threat to me somehow. Something in the world shows up as uncanny or disturbing in some way, right? There's this, and what it is, I don't know maybe, but it's something specific. It's that thing shaking in the bushes over there. That's what's concerning me. Is that dude walking behind me kind of too close at night? That's got me concerned, or it's something else that's got me concerned, right? That some virus has got me concerned, or something like that. So fear is like a threat to me that is something specific. The next mood that Heidegger goes into is really important. Because with it, we sort of come to the head of this existential analytic of Dasein. Because with Angst, we come to see, well, Angst shows Dasein's possibility of authenticity, okay? And Angst, anxiety, anxiety I think is it might have the wrong connotation in English these days. It's not like a nervousness or something like that. Angst, I like better, but angst, anxiety, what is this? Angst, anxiety is when there's something in the world, not something, where the world shows up as threatening. What in the world? Nothing in particular. So where fear was that, thing in the bushes, the guy behind me, or something specific, angst is nothing specific showing up as a threat. So like the world shows up as a threat. And why? Because everywhere I look, I see not me. It is unworldly, uncanny. He calls it dis-ease. Everything I do, I try to understand myself. I try to, when I engage the world and equipment, but all I do is I see they and equipment. Where the hell am I? Where the hell am I? My whole life is other people's projects. Nobody's projects, everyone's projects. Mine, but not mine. So this angst is this not seeing anything of me originally in the world, not seeing any opportunity to be me in the world. Everywhere I turn, I see something handed to me, something that's not mine. My inauthenticity shows itself, and that causes anxiety, angst, and with that, I might be able to do something different. With angst, because angst shows me this world that's not mine, well, now I might be able to engage it differently. Angst shows me that everything I do isn't from me. I'm in projects that aren't mine, that are somebody else's. I'm living a life towards goals that I didn't even choose. Where the hell am I? Ooh, now that's a real question for me. Right? So we'll talk about the rest of this later.